Morning, Joe and the Pro. Although I've had my Joe today, it's 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and we're lucky enough to have Tony Miller with us from the Nugget, a sports book operator, manager. I don't know, what is your title?
Executive director of the Golden Nugget Sportsbook.
Does that fit on a card?
Yeah, it's a long title, but been here 12 years now, and I'm the legalized bookie here.
You know, I love the Golden Nugget. Their pool is phenomenal. And even though it's not on the strip, I mean, the location is so great.
Oh, buddy, it's great downtown. And if you've never been downtown Las Vegas, it's old school, man. And it's fun down here. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of casinos, and everything's like within walking distance, a few blocks.
Yeah, and they're rebuilding it up nicely. I went to the steakhouse at the D recently, and it's actually, I mean, it rivals any steakhouse on the strip.
Oh, it's a great place over there, their steakhouse. And our Vic and Anthony's here at the Golden Nugget are the two best steakhouses downtown. And I'm telling you, man, you can't go wrong if you like a steak.
Yeah, and I'm a poker player, and the Golden Nugget have some amazing tournaments. I've played in their summer series almost every year in that main event, that 550, I think it is.
Yeah, for sure. We have the Grand Poker Series out in the Grand, and our guys do a great job in that. They got some good events, and that thing's getting very popular every year.
It is, and you know what? It's. I actually stopped playing a lot of the World Series of poker events. I don't like their structure, so I usually go down around that time and I play at the Planet Hollywood events and at the Golden Nugget. Those are, the two sort of go-to places for me in towards the end of June. Yeah, June,
Yeah,
early July.
exactly. You know what, man? If you don't have deep pockets in some of these really expensive tournaments around town, we look really good prices down here and all along other places. So, yeah, it's a good event, and they give out some good prize money.
Plus, you get to walk past that pool, and it's got the shark going on, and it's one of
Right.
it's one of the only pools where you're indoors, but you can still see everything going on.
Very true, man. And you got the balls to go down that tube in the middle of it. It's pretty cool, awesome. So, we have to do it one time next time you're out, you and I together. How's that?
Sounds like a plan, and then we cross the road to whatever that place is called and get the deep fried Mars bars.
Yeah, and the deep fried Twinkies and everything else.
Yeah, I know it well. Anyway, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this show with us. I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions, but really, what we're gonna focus on today is how the lines are made. At the end of the show, we'll talk a little bit about some NFL games that might stand out to you, as well as some bowl games, because the lines are up, the schedule is set. But let's focus on how the lines are made from start to finish. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you guys, if you really are actually trying to balance the books, or if that's a bit of a myth, because a lot of people are a bit confused about that. I did work for a sports book for many years, so I know a bunch of these answers, but we'd rather hear it from you. So let's look at the NFL this week. We have a look-ahead line, but put that aside. The games end on Sunday. When do you start?
Well, I'm starting next week right now, today. So we're working on next week's lines right now. We don't have time to wait. So, and I'll be honest with you, a short version of how we come up with lines and how we make lines, including the NFL. And a lot of it's to do with experience. I mean, I've been doing this since the late 70s. So, you can throw two teams at me, and I'll come out with a roundabout number. It's going to be in the ballpark for you, straight from my head. But for the layman's terms, the way we do it and the proper way to do it is every sport and every team has a power ranking. Everybody knows, have heard the word power ranking. What a power ranking is a number adjusted to that team. And let's say the Patriots have got a power ranking in NFL football 100. That number sticks with them year after year, and that number is adjusted up and down depending on the players they get and what happens with injuries and whatnot. Now they're playing a team, say the Miami Dolphins this week, and their power ranking is a 93. Real simple. 93 from 100 is a 7. It's a 7-point favorite. Those power rankings are adjusted every day, every week, depending on weather, certain things, injuries and suspensions, and all whatnot. And that's how we come up with point spreads.
So, with that said, and are you hiring you can't be doing every single sport yourself, especially with college basketball in full effect and 3 million games a week. You have a team of guys that specialize in each sport?
Yeah, for sure. I do. I have a team of 3 guys below me, and we have what we call our Bible. And our Bible is every sport in the world, every team with a power ranking, and certain guys are doing certain things. One guy's doing NFL and college football. Another guy's got college basketball. Another guy's got hockey, and, they specialize in it. And of course, these numbers are adjusted. And like I said, every day, college basketball and NBA and hockey, we work on a daily basis. We're working on tomorrow's games right now, NFL right now for next week. So yeah, I do it all. They can do it all. It's hard to do it all. And we specialize in different areas.
So let's talk about, for instance, the rugby sevens. I think it's in effect right now. I think it's going on right now, actually. And it's a sport that people in North America are not familiar with, albeit incredible to watch. I mean, exactly. Oh my God. It actually doesn't get much better in sport as far as excitement than rugby sevens. No chance you guys have a rugby sevens expert, but yet you probably are offering lines on that, or you're not.
We are offering lines, and you're right. We don't have a rugby sevens expert. We don't have a cricket or darts or snooker expert either. But you know what? We do have numbers for them. We know New Zealand and Fiji and those Samoan teams are really good in rugby. We put up the Rugby World Cup that's coming up here real soon with all the nations. But you know what? We study it still. We still look into things, and we still go to websites and things like that and study it up. And we keep an eye on it. There's guys out there that are a lot smarter than us when it comes to rugby, especially the people from those particular nations. And they can come in here and pick you off if you're not in the correct lines.
So are you putting a limit on those type of games because you're not as comfortable with your own lines?
Well, with the NFL, you could walk up to the counter right now and bet $50,000 on a side. You can't walk up right now and bet Japan in the rugby sevens for $50,000. Every sport, especially a sport like that, we don't have a lot of knowledge on. We'll have lower limits.
So Tony, one of the things that is interesting to me, and I'm sure the listeners, is if you're doing your own work and the Golden Nugget are putting up their own lines, how is it that all the sportsbooks lines are exactly within a half point the same?
Well, there is a screen out there, and we use the Dom Best
Yeah, of
screen.
course.
And it shows every line, of course, around the world. Now, there's different ways of bookmaking. We're an independent book here. There's no other Golden Nugget. Well, there's one in Laughlin, but it's a little satellite book. But I make my own lines. We're an independent sports book. There's very few of us left. But what I do is try and stay in market. Of course, if the game is 7 across the board on a football game and I put up a 7.5, they're going to come in here and take the 7.5 in a second because I'm the only one in town. So I like to stay in market unless I get some very, very big numbers, which make me lopsided, accumulation on a side, and I'll move the number just to get some money back a little bit on the other side, so I'm not lopsided. But basically, we try and stay in market with each other here in town.
So let's talk about that marketplace. It can't be random that every book is doing, or every major book, whether it's Chris Offshore or William Hill or Bet365, you guys, Westgate, it can't be random that you're all starting within a half point of each other. Is there one entity that sort of sets the market? Then you'll look at your lines and adjust towards that one entity?
Well, I can tell you right now, we're working on tomorrow's basketball. I've got my lines set for tomorrow's basketball already. As they start coming out and they go offshore. They go offshore first, the numbers come out, and it hits Vegas, which is West Coast of the United States. We get them early in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock. I can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and see where my lines are as far as what I wanted to put out and what's out there comparable. Of course, if Chris comes out with a -5 on Duke, I want to put up a -8 because, we're going to be way off base. So, but you know what? These books in town here in Vegas and offshore, we're all within a point or a point and a half of each other. Very rarely are we off that much, but it's not a standard number though across the board. Money moves your number here in Vegas. I could have a lot of money on one side that Westgate doesn't have, and I have to come off that number. So if you see a book that's off a number from another book, it's because of the money coming in on that game.
So let's talk about that, Tony. So when I worked for a sports book, the VIG, the 10%, it really goes to pay for the operations of running the sports book. And a lot of sports books are thrilled to make a sort of, I don't want to use the word net profit, but, some form of net profit at around the 3% number. Can you talk about that in regards to, are you making your money off of the 10% or are you making your money off of losing bets?
Well, and that's a great question because, the general public perceives that all sportsbooks make money. We're making 10% on every bet, which is not true. The sportsbook in the casino as a division is very low. We don't hold a whole lot compared to slots and table games and things like that. We're grinding it out, and that's why the comp system in Vegas, when it comes to comps on food and shows and things like that, it's hard to get unless you play a lot of money because our hold just isn't there in a sports book. If you make 3%, 4%, or even 5% on your games, depending on the sport, you're doing okay. If you make 7, 8%, you're doing very well. And, it depends on the sport. But no, I can tell you right now, the Cowboys are playing the Eagles this week, and everyone out there is going to think, we balance the books, make it even money on both sides. It doesn't work out that way. We had a customer on Monday night for the Redskins game come up at the last second and play a load of money on the Redskins, which is, I've been booking that game for 8 days, and all of a sudden now, boom, I'm off kilter at the last second. We're on the field kicking off. So things happen, accumulation happens. There's parlays involved, there's teasers involved, and there's a lot of things that happen that, the books don't win every week. I promise and tell you that. We don't win every week, and, it's hard to win, hard to hold on sports and make a ton of money in the casino.
Yeah, and it's also why all you're getting are a few drinks when you're sitting in the sports book. I mean, there's just very little money to make. It's similar in that sense to poker, although poker, at least they're not betting against the casino, but poker players aren't getting a whole lot of comps either. So with parlays and teasers, do you find, what is the bulk? Like, if there's 100 bets made, are 80% straights, are 60% parlays? What is the bulk?
The accumulation of tickets on a particular game, I can tell you, is probably 60%, 70% parlays and teasers on that game. There's hundreds and hundreds of tickets, especially going to the favorites and the overs that the general public love. They like shooting BBs at the moon, man. They like betting $20 to win, 300,000 or whatever they're going to win if they hit a big shot. And it happens every week. Come Monday night, most of the books in town are up against it because there's parlays and stuff and teasers going to both sides. As soon as they kick off, the books usually lose. Because there's a lot of, let's put it this way. There's a 10-teamer out there that pays 800 to 1, and there's one team left going to Monday Night Football. You got to tell the bosses upstairs, hey, we're going to lose 80,000. We're going to win $10. That's how it goes with the parlays, and that's why we're up against it if they all come in on Monday night.
So let me ask you a question on that regard, and also listeners, there is a bit of a delay on Tony's sound. Don't worry about it. We can still hear him perfectly. So, Tony, on that regard, and I remember working for a book, and when we were really stuck come that Monday night game, we would actually lay off. So we would call another book and pass money over to them. Is that something that you guys do? Is that a common activity? The book that I was working for was an online book, so it might not have had, the financial wherewithal as the Nugget. Is that something you guys do, or you just sort of ride it out?
That's something that's very popular offshore, but not in Las Vegas. No, that's something I do not do here at the Nugget. I've never heard of any other books in town laying off with another book here in town. But I know what happens offshore. I worked offshore. I used to do it.
Yeah, we did it all. We did it all the time. It was just you would just get stuck with too much risk, as you were saying. So Tony, in regards to the sports, I mean, NFL is obviously the sport to bet on. Let's go to the least bet sport, hockey. Is it 10-1 NFL to hockey, or is it way larger than that?
It's way larger than that. NFL is king, college football is second, college basketball is third, and those are monsters compared to hockey. Though hockey has come a long way in the last 2 years because of the Vegas Golden Knights, I believe, here in Las Vegas and the interest they have caused. Hockey's getting very popular, and people are starting to understand it more and bet on it a lot more. And it used to be where, hockey was just a side sport. We had it in the corner of the room on the TVs, and we didn't take a lot of action to it. But times have changed, especially in the last 2 years. We're getting a lot of money on hockey right now, and people always want sound on hockey, and it's growing. I will say that.
So here's another quick question, and I know this is running on, but this is just such great information, and I'm not rushing it. I hope you're okay with that. What I want to know, Tony, is what sport should people be betting to win at? In other words, my guess is that the NFL lines are so finely tuned because your risk ratio is so high, whereas rugby sevens would not be as finely tuned, or hockey would not, especially in the month of, professional bettors talk about that window before Christmas in college basketball, that 5-week window where you guys are so busy. Every sport is in play, hundreds of games a week. And really the college basketball lines are not as sharp as they would be once the bowl seasons end and once you guys can sort of get rid of a lot of the NFL and a lot of the college football. So, we all love that college basketball window. Can you talk about that at all, where, what sports are the softest lines, and is there a seasonality to any of this?
Yeah, for sure. Two good answers to that question, Prez, is number one, the sportsbook's worst enemy out of the four major sports is baseball.
Yes.
We dread baseball season. We hate it. There's not much hold here for the books because the public usually does very well in baseball. And that's because of the money lines. There's no point spreads. You're talking about money lines now. And anybody, at any time can win a baseball game. The face of baseball is changing. You see teams now, going away from starting pitchers and using relief pitchers to start games. And that's added a whole new dimension as far as wagering goes. And, I'll be honest with you, I get my ass kicked in baseball quite a bit. I hate baseball season. So if you're looking to make a living, look at baseball. Football is a sports book's best friend. The public usually does do that well in football. And, it's hard to hit, because especially when you're betting parlays. And that's my other thing. If you're a player, stick to straight bets. It's hard enough to make money on straight bets. Why are you going to throw it away now, your hard-earned money, on parlays? Take your time, be patient, don't bet with your heart, and bet straight bets and accumulate money on a weekly basis. Don't go for it all at once because it's not going to happen. I promise you, I've been in this thing since 1977. I've seen so many guys go broke trying to do it all at once. It's not going to happen. You got to be patient.
You're speaking to the converted. People ask me, I've bet for a living since 1998, and they ask me, what is the biggest pieces of advice? My first big piece of advice is make sure to lose all your money fast. Then get a job, rebuild your bankroll, and have learned from your idiot mistakes. But the worst thing that could happen to somebody coming into this betting game is to hit that 9-team parlay early. It's
Boom.
like that heroin shot that they just keep chasing.
Yep. Oh, man, you hit it right on the head. I see these young kids come in here all the time, and, I played high school football. This is easy. I'm going to make me some money, and, man, I take them down every week. Trust me.
Yeah. But you see that with the ex-pros, Tony. Randy White, the famous Dallas Cowboy, was a gambler. There's so many of them. I played. I can beat the book. Man, what a wake-up call for them. But, the interesting thing about parlays is nobody's ever going to stop doing them. And you know that, and I know that.
Exactly.
I tell my listeners, if you have to have that action, if you have to do a 3-team or 4-team parlay, 11-1 on the 4-team, 6-1 on the 3-team, do an if bet and make it true odds. Do you see those? I mean, why aren't people doing it in an if style where a 6-1 3-teamer is actually an 8-1 payout if you do it correctly? It absolutely baffles my mind.
Well, and Prez, that's a great point you brought up. But the problem is schooling and understanding the wagering system. People don't know that a 3-teamer, should pay 8-1, not 6-1, and they don't know that there's some places you can go to. You got to shop. You have got to shop. You got to open up your accounts and have mobile apps and things like that, and pick and choose, man. You just can't stick to one. It's all changed. Back in the early 80s when I was running books, it was great. There was no internet. There was no mobile phones. It was free money for the books. But social media, Twitter, all these internet accounts, mobile phones now, phone account wagering, in-game wagering has all changed the face of the game, and sportsbooks have to adjust. And I can tell you from this side of the counter, it's hard for us now. It's a lot harder than it's ever been for us to beat the public. So learn your games, learn your numbers, and you'll make money, not a whole lot of money at the beginning. If you're patient, you can make money.
One last question before we get into the NFL. We know that the LA teams and especially the New York teams have, sort of a false marketplace, if you will, with the lines because they've just got a bigger mass of people betting those plays. We talk about college basketball and when you talk to these incredible college basketball bettors, they're honing in on Pacific and Cal State and all of these smaller teams. I know that was the case a few years ago. Would you say it's still the case where if you're going to be betting college football or college basketball, you're better off staying away from Alabama, staying away from Duke or Kansas in college basketball and really focusing on the smaller conferences?
Man, you are so good. You hit it right on the head, man. Alabama this year, they were such a monster. The trend was bet them in the first half. And I can tell you as a bookmaker, I was shading those numbers big time. Those numbers were off by 2-3 points and they really should have been. But the general public doesn't know that. They just keep going with the trends. They look at what's been happening and what's been going good, and hey, I'm going to get on that bandwagon too. But they're laying bad numbers. The smart, sharp guys on the mobile apps are sitting there watching these numbers go up, and I'll take money on the other side, because of the numbers are inflated. For sure, the very popular teams, the trendy teams, the Rams, of course, are very popular right now. The Chiefs, the Saints.
That's what I was just going to ask you for a list of some of those NFL teams. And yes, obviously the Rams and the Saints, Kansas City for sure, New England always, yet with no disrespect to your line makers and every other line makers, they still haven't caught up to New England. Are there any teams? I mean, Pittsburgh, is it just like the good teams that you're getting a bit of a skew line? Or is there like a team like Cleveland because they were on Hard Knocks?
And that's another great point. Hard Knocks at the beginning of the season, those Browns numbers were shaded a little bit because of the popularity and the general public. The sharps are always on the other side of the Browns because those numbers were inflated. But yeah, every week when we put up numbers, we know, especially from the Southern California clientele that comes into Vegas, we know they're going to bet the Rams. We know they're going to bet the Chargers. We know at our property down in Biloxi they're going to bet the Saints. So yeah, if you're a smart bettor, you're going to wait back and see what the number is on the other side and take it.
And it's funny because that's really how the local bookies make their money. Because if you're betting with a local bookie and you're betting, say, the Giants, that half point doesn't feel like they're screwing you. Yet it's probably worth roughly, if it's a 3, if the marketplace is a 3 and they throw a 3.5 up, it's probably worth roughly about 8% difference.
Right?
It doesn't feel like a screw job, but 8% is massive.
Massive. It is very massive. And, I'm telling you, it happens every week. It happens in every sport. And the bookmakers are onto it. We know who they're going to bet. I can tell you right now who they're going to bet this week accumulation. And if all the favorites come in and you hear about it and the public hears about it every week, the books are bitching, fall destroyed because of all the accumulation. They lay the number, they go to the overs, and that's what happens. The public loves the favorites.
Let's talk we'll leave the bowl games for another time. Tony, I would love for you to come on again. Let me know anytime you want, and it would be amazing. But let's talk this NFL week for a second here. We spoke about Kansas City being one of these inflated teams. They came out at 8.5 opening line. Listeners out there, don't get so caught up in these opening lines as well, because they usually last about 1 second. But they came out at 8.5. Yesterday they were a flat 7 pretty much everywhere, and now we're seeing a 6.5.
Yeah.
Talk to that game. Are you already taking a lot of money on the Ravens? That's a fairly big move. I think, and I could be wrong here, but I think 7 to 6.5 is somewhere around a 6% move as far as games ending flat on 7. I think it's somewhere in that 6 zone. Is it because, we've got the general public, 72% of the general public are on Kansas City, yet the line is going against them.
Yeah, exactly. We took some hits on the Ravens right off the bat at the beginning of the week. We're currently at 6.5 on the Chiefs, but accumulation towards the weekends on these favorite teams will go up. I can tell you right now, the ticket count is going to be so lopsided on this game where, the general public loves the Chiefs. They know how good they're playing. They're going to use them in parlays. They're going to use them in teasers and tease it down to a pick-em game. And, we're going to need the Ravens. So me taking that money at the beginning of the week on the Ravens was okay. I was slow to move it because I knew I was going to need the Ravens come kickoff time, and that's what's happening already. The accumulation is starting to come in. We'll go back up to 7 probably on this game in no time flat.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I want to talk about Seattle and Minnesota. There's no major line move here. It's been flat on 45 in the total. It did open up at 3.5, but it's been sitting at 3 for days for Seattle. I find this game fascinating because, this is one of those games where we really have not seen a consistently good Minnesota team, yet we're looking at a Seattle team that's just laying the smackdown week after week, probably the hottest team in football right now. That line seems fishy to me, Tony. It feels like you're asking people to bet Seattle. I'm guessing you're going to be crazy heavy on the Seahawks. Why is that line so low?
I'll tell you, Prez, and this is one of the games that I've talked to my staff about. I said, be careful of this game because we're at 3.5 even on the game. I don't want to go to 3. The 3 scares me with Seattle.
I agree.
Monday night game. You know what I mean? So I said, let's stay at 3.5. We'll juice it down. We'll put even money on it. Make them lay 6 to 5 on the other side. But yeah, you're right. We're going to need Seattle. This is 2 teams I think going in opposite directions. Pete Carroll versus Zimmer. Pete Carroll's got his team on fire, man. They're looking good, and they're tough to beat at home on a Monday night in Seattle with 20-degree weather up there. So yeah, I think we're going to need Minnesota for sure. I'm staying at 3.5. I'm not going near to 3. So I'll move the money before I move the number.
The last game I want to talk about, Tony, as you probably can figure out, is the same type of concept as the Seattle-Minnesota game, and that is the Rams on the road laying 3. You got public is about 70% coming in on the Rams. I'm going to expect you be super heavy on the Rams here. I mean, they've lost 1 game all year. That was to New Orleans. Chicago, we still don't know exactly whether Trubisky is going to start. From a seeing eye test, that line feels low towards the Rams. But, what the general public's not going to take into account is, they're playing across coast. They're playing in cold weather. They're playing in a different time zone. Are you comfortable on that 3, or you think this is going to move to 3.5, 4?
Hell no, I hate that 3. First of all, they're going to tease the crap out of it. They're going to be getting the Rams +4 or +3 on the other side. The only, we don't know about Trubisky, but you know what? There's between Trubisky and Daniel is only a point and a half anyway, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, we're going to need the Rams. They're going to tie up the Rams with the Chiefs and the Seahawks and the Pats, and like always, we're going to need the Bears. But that's a good team I wouldn't mind having, because I think their defense can get the Goff. I think they can stop Gurley on the run. I think they might have a chance if it's really, really freaking cold. It will be.
Yeah, it will be, and the winds look like they're going to be high as well. So, I could see this game playing to the under, but the line went from 54 to 51.5. But I think there's been a lot of overs this year. It's actually amazing. I was talking to somebody about this earlier. Even as early as 2 years ago, you would look at a 46 and say, wow, that's pretty high. Now you're looking at a 46, and it's looking like 2 years ago's 41.
Yeah, and Prez, you mentioned the totals. This year for totals, NFL totals, it's hard for me to believe we've had totals in the 60s and the 50s consistently like we have. You don't see very many games in cold weather situations. And for all your bettors out there, pay attention to this. It's hard to see games in the 50s and when the games are being played in 20 degrees. There's normally a lot of running in those games. I'd be, if I was a bettor, forget betting either side here. Take the 3, minus the 3, or plus the 3. Bet the under.
Yeah.
It's a safer play. It's a safer play this weekend for that game because you're going to see a lot of running.
I couldn't agree with you more. Tony, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to bother you to do this again every now and then. I know you do a weekly show with Kelly. She's the best. We at Wager Talk so deeply appreciate all of the work that you and the sportsbook manager at Westgate and all our contacts do for us. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Best of luck this week. I hope you win. The amazing thing about it, Tony, is you're only going to need to win one of those games, whether it's Minnesota or Miami or Chicago, Oakland. You're only going to need one of them to bust all those parlays and teasers. So good luck with that, my friend.
Well, thanks, Prez, for having me on, and good to be part of your family. And you know what? Anytime you need me on your show, I'll do it. Anytime you need. If you want me to do it weekly or monthly, whatever. If I can help you out and help your players out and all your watchers, then that'd be great, man. I hope I help out a little bit.
Absolutely. And Tony, one last thing, and you do not need to answer this now. Just think about it. We would love to, if we've got customers that are heading to Vegas all the time, is there anything that we could do for these guys, whether it's like a free 10-team, $10 parlay or, make 3 straight bets, get the 4th one at half, I don't know, smaller juice. Just think about it, because we'd love to send you guys bettors, and, we're not taking anything. You're not paying us to send you bettors.
That's right.
But if you can, if you can come up with something, a 7-1 3-team parlay for just the Wager Talk guys instead of a 6-1. Think of something for us. It would be awesome to give out.
Couple things here real quick. Let me think about that, and next time we talk, maybe I'll have something for you. Let me see if I can get something rolling, and that'd be very cool to have our Wager Talk guests come in and say, hey, I heard you, and give me that free play. Let me look into that and see if I can do something. And on the other thing, for your guys, your listeners who want to reach out to me, can I give out my Twitter account?
Absolutely.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter. It's Gollum is the Twitter handle, Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Gollum LV, that's my Twitter handle. So follow me on Twitter. Ask me some questions. Anything I can help you with, I answer all my questions. So feel free to reach out and see if I can help you, and we'll get this thing rolling.
And I'll leave the listeners with one last thing, and that is, as you can hear from Tony, these guys, these sportsbook managers, they're not against you bettors. It's not you versus them. Tony is coming on. He's giving legitimate information. He's telling you baseball is the sport to win at. He's telling you which teams have inflated numbers, which teams they these guys are not baiting you to make bets. They literally just want the action, and they want their sportsbook packed on those Saturday and Sundays because the atmosphere is incredible. Yeah,
for sure. Anything I can do to help out your listeners, I will definitely help them out and be truthful, and maybe it turn out to be a great thing. I think I can help out with all my experience.
You remind me of Roger Alec, which, by the way, is as good a compliment as you can get. An absolute epic pioneer in this space. I'm sure you know who he is.
That's awesome.
Take care of yourself, my friend.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon, and good luck this week.
Thank you, buddy.